Howdy. All right, good news. Well, bad news is we started late. Good news is it's just me today, so it will be a much shorter meeting unless you guys have tons of questions. So, unfortunately, Misty Korn is ill, and so she's not here today to talk about certification. Her contact information is here, but what I can tell you is she's going to take the slides that she was going to share today, put audio. We will send you an email, and you can review the information that she was going to share today, and it'll be online where you can go back and review it when you need to. So certification questions, if they are pressing, you can email her, but if not, in the next week, maybe not till the week of Thanksgiving, will that get posted and available for you guys. Okay? Any questions about certification that I might be able to answer before we get started? Yes? Correct. You don't even have to do it before you graduate. You have to do it before you can be recommended for certification. But yes. No? Okay. No. That's the only, primary content was the only one that had to be passed before we're putting you out in the field for clinical teaching. Okay? All right. Other bad news. Placements will not be shared today. I know. We only have maybe 15% of the placements. And so districts are still sending us information, still figuring out what their spring semester is going to look like, what campuses they're going to use. We're also still penciling in supervisors to make sure that you have all the information that we are able to share with you. So what will happen is by the first week of December, we will send you an email with your placement information. If we don't have some of that information, meaning if you're going to Comal ISD and they have not assigned the mentor teacher, it will still have the district. It'll have the information that we have available to share with you. We should all have supervisor information. So you'll have as much as we can give you in that email with some details about what the next steps are and who your supervisor. If we have your mentor teacher, then obviously go ahead and make contact with them. So, but you will get an email by the first week of December with the placement information that we have. That still gives you 2.5 up to 3 weeks before public school gets out for the holidays to make contact with your teacher. Okay, questions about that before we get started? Yes? So as of now, if you're leaving what we would consider local. So if you've requested Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, all of that was sent to those districts that you preferenced as your number one choice. And so at this point, as of now, everyone has been tentatively placed in their first district preference. That could still change, but chances are we would have heard back from the district at this point if they were not going to be able to place you. There still is a potential for a couple of districts like up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that are still looking and waiting to hear back from principals. And if they're not able to place you at this point, we'll send you an email or call you and say, you requested South Lake Carroll. Unfortunately, they're not going to be able to place you. Your second choice was Capel. Are you still good with that? And we will follow up with the next district on your list. Okay? Questions about that? Yes? If you're doing local, there's no, yeah. And I can tell you for local, I'll just go ahead and tell you this. If you're in senior methods now and you're in College Station ISD and you put College Station ISD as your first choice, you're not going to get your first choice. Same thing. If you're in Bryan now and preference Bryan, you're not going to go back to the same district where you're currently placed. So I can tell y'all that much. Okay? Any other questions about placements? Okay. All right. So today what we're going to talk about is kind of next step, what your semester is going to look like as a clinical teacher, what you can expect. It's going to be just a really broad overview of the semester. You will all be meeting with your assigned supervisor by the first day of clinical teaching. Some of you may be meeting with them before the Christmas break. They may say, can we get together and go over everything before the break? Some of them will wait until the week before or the day before you actually start in the field to go over the handbook, just do a really thorough orientation of what your semester expectations are going to look like. So today is going to be the high points, kind of what to expect, hopefully clarify any questions you have, broad questions, and then the nuts and bolts of what the day-to-day, the week-to-week is going to look like. You will meet with your supervisor and have that conversation. Some of you guys will be with supervisors that have up to 24 clinical teachers, so you're going to be in a large group having an orientation. Some of you guys will be one-on-one because you're the only clinical teacher at A&M that this person is supervising. So your orientations are going to look different as far as where you meet, when you meet. That is driven by your supervisor and or potentially your district. If you've gotten emails from your district about requirements, make sure you get those taken care of because we won't be able to clear you and share your placement if you have not done the requirements they have for fingerprinting if they require that, any of the criminal background checks if they have their own application process to clear you. So make sure you're checking your email and taking care of those requirements that any of the districts may put forward. If you're staying in the local area, you will also have criminal history paperwork once your placement is made that you'll need to get taken care of. And so in the email that when you get your placement, it'll tell you how to proceed to be cleared. Make sure you get that done before the break because districts aren't going to be in their offices either taking care of that over the break. And you would hate to show up your very first day and be told at the front desk that you can't come on to. Okay? All right. So you guys started registration yesterday, today, next week, right? No? Next week. Okay. I know it opened yesterday officially, so some people maybe have registered. Everybody has been to a mandatory advising. Yes? You will not get your placement if you have not been in for advising this semester either. So make sure that you sign up for the right course and then the section based on where you are placed, local or distance, 500 versus 550. Just FYI, this will be posted once everybody comes to the makeup meeting. This PowerPoint and information will be available to you guys. So, all right, any questions on Justin Smith requirements here, getting placed, registered in the right section? Yes. Yes. You do TEED. If you have to have 12 hours for whatever reason, TEED 425 and then either 500 or 550. That'll guarantee you the 12 hours. Yes. Doesn't matter your certification for that class. All right. Any other questions? Okay. All right. We're going to talk just some basic overview, what to expect. You get one chance to make your first impression. So make sure when your very first line of communication with your mentor teacher and your supervisor, be thoughtful. This is going to be the person, the mentor teacher and your supervisor are going to be your biggest advocates for getting your first job. They're going to be writing your recommendations, and helping facilitate, transitioning into a job. So just be thoughtful when you first reach out to them or your first interactions with them. It takes a long time to make up for anything negative. So first impressions are important. Same thing the first time you go on the campus and you meet the principal and the other teachers. Just be thoughtful of that. A big thing, remember, while this is a requirement for graduation and part of your curriculum, at the end of the day, you are guests in the classroom and in the school. And if for some reason things don't go well and they decide that you can no longer be in their school, you are a guest. So that is their priority is their school, their kids, their teachers. You're there, you're adding great value. It's a great experience, but at the end of the day, we are guests. We have asked to come in to help out. They're providing the service, but they have no obligation to allow us to be on their campuses. So just keep that mindset throughout your semester. While you're not getting paid, it is a 14-week full-time job. And I'm sure you've got friends in it now that can attest to that. It's also, if you will go into the mindset, it's like a job interview. You may not have any intention of staying on that campus, in that school district even, but the people that are witnessing your actions and behaviors and teaching will help you get that next job. And sometimes they know people in the district where you want to go. So just be thoughtful while you're there, that just kind of look at it as a job interview. That will help conversations, relationships, and just as you do transition into your first job, looking back on this experience, having that mindset will be beneficial. Dress, punctuality, you guys have heard that through junior methods, senior methods. That's nothing new. Make sure, like I said, once you have your information to contact your mentor teacher. I would highly encourage you, if you have the capability, to email them and ask if you could come for lunch or before school or after school or during their conference period. Grab a Starbucks or a Sonic, go meet them, see the school, just kind of get lay of the land so that the first day when you go back and you're actually there, that part won't be an unknown. You will be familiar with where to park, how to go in, check in, all just kind of those pieces. Also, just have a visual of the classroom. It would be great if you could go and maybe even get some curriculum or information about the kids, who's going to be in the class, so that you're a step ahead when you show up that first day. As much as first impression, you also want to finish really strong. Your last impression is also important, and a lot of these people will be writing recommendations for you weeks, months later, and so finish really strong. That's critical. Make sure that you have checked your social media, what your phone says when you don't answer it. When I call your cell phone, what message you have. You're transitioning into a professional phase, and so I would highly encourage you to, if you have something on there that is Aggie related or college related, to change that over to just a more professional. If somebody calls you from a district, that what they hear is a professional greeting. Same thing, just Google yourself, see what's out there, because your kids will. They'll know more about you if they know your name when you show up, because they'll look you up and see if they can find a picture of you and what you look like and what you do for fun. And so just be thoughtful about that. And also, as the semester goes, be very mindful of what you post on social media. If you have a really bad day, call one of your friends that's going through this and scream and yell and whatever you have to say in the phone to them. But don't post things on social media. We've had students removed from clinical teaching because they posted things that they should not have posted on social media. Students found it, took screenshots. Principal, the next day they showed up and they were told they were no longer welcome on the campus. So as bad as things may seem, there's somebody that you can reach out to, or go in the closet, shut the door, go in the shower, scream, yell, whatever you have to do, call us. There's somebody to reach out to. Do not make posts that people can see that can come back and be a bad thing. So, first day of clinical teaching will be the first day that the students are in their classrooms after the break. Most schools start back on the 7th, some the 8th, some the 9th, depending on staff development days if they have those built in that week. So your first official day will be the first day with students in the classroom. Working during clinical teaching. Clinical teaching is a full-time job, but some people may need to work. And so the main thing is it can't interfere with your expectations of clinical teaching. So if your teacher stays late and grades papers and preps for the next day and is there till 5, you should be there till 5. You should be there with them, helping them, as long as it's school related and you're prepping and planning and organizing things for the future. If they're just there hanging out, that's not the same. But if there's things to be done and there's ways that you can help, especially as you transition into teaching and full responsibility, you need to plan on being there. So Working weekends would be the best case scenario if you do have to work. Any questions on working? Okay. All right, we're working on the handbook. There will be a few revisions to it, and so once that is revised and posted, you'll get an email. Hopefully that will be done when placements are sent out, and so you'll be able to download the handbook, print it off, and have it, look through it, and so when you meet with the supervisor that for orientation, you will be familiar with the expectations laid out. The one for the fall is there if you want to look at it just to kind of know what all is involved, but I'm going to go over some high points, but the actual spring handbook will be revised in the near future. The handbook itself is just kind of a reference guide of what the semester looks like, expectations, assignments. You will sign an acknowledgement that you have reviewed the handbook and you know the expectations, and you will leave that with your supervisor at your orientation. Overview, the objectives of the clinical teaching experience. These are outlined. I'm not going to read them to you, but basically this is your transition from college and observing into the practical internship piece of your curriculum. One of the main things that this semester and what we're hoping is that you will start being able to self-reflect and realize when things go really well and when things don't, and how you address things when they don't go well. And that's part of the observation process and the reflection piece that's required with each observation. Yes? No, so you'll have an orientation with your supervisor that's going to come in and do your observations that we hire. So you'll have a mentor teacher that's your day-to-day in the schools, and then a supervisor that will come in to do the required observations. Yeah. All right. As far as what your 14 weeks look like, that's kind of outlined in the handbook. There's a pacing schedule. You're going to start observing. You're going to get the lay of the land, figure out the dynamics of the classroom or each individual class, and you will build up. You will assist. You will team teach. Then you will start teaching a few periods of the day, and you will eventually end up in full responsibility for 2 sets of 2 weeks. So out of your 14 weeks, 4 of those weeks you will be in full responsibility. Lesson plans, there's samples in there. You will follow your mentor teacher's lesson plan template, district template, but your supervisor may want you to script out, and you will do some long lesson plans early on as you work your way up into full responsibility. If you're doing a good job with pacing and covering the components, those will be able to be backed off into shorter lesson plans. You will have a midpoint conference and a final conference where you sit down with your mentor teacher and your supervisor and talk about how things are going. Your mentor teacher is going to see you every day, all day, and give you informal, ongoing feedback of what they're seeing regularly. Your supervisor is going to show up and watch a 45-minute formal lesson and do a formal observation, which is how you'll be evaluated when you're actually a teacher as far as T-test goes. So you're going to get informal, ongoing feedback, and then these 45-minute observations. And so the midpoint conference gives all of you an opportunity to sit down and talk about how things are going. And that's the purpose of those conferences. Those will also be in the portal, and you will do a reflection from each of those. Semester is 70 days. That is a TEA requirement. That is not an A&M. That is not a TLAC. That is a TEA state requirement for clinical teaching now. So 70 days are required to be cleared for certification, which means any absence has to be made up. I'm going to talk a little more in detail about absences and what those look like. You'll have seminars with your supervisor, so you'll have an orientation, and then throughout the semester you'll have other seminars that you're expected to attend. Typically those are to go over things that maybe you're struggling with or ways to improve. Might be on lesson plans, might be on classroom management. Leading up to the career fair, they may talk about interviewing, resumes, those kind of things. Yes? Yes. Once the semester starts. So if your school happens to have a staff development on January 7th and the kids don't start till the 8th, your official day is the 8th. But if there's a staff development day for President's Day, that Monday, and you go and your mentor teacher is there and you're there all day, that can count as a day. Good question. Yes? No. They'll be after school or on the weekends. Some of the supervisors will have you over to their house. Like at the end of the day, you'll come over. They'll have snacks for you. Some of them, they may come to your school. There may be 3 or 4 of you on a campus. They may come to your school and meet with you. They're not long, but they are required. So you've got to attend those. Yes?
Are they individual or like groups? So like if there were multiple people on our campus, would our seminars be with all of us?
Yes. Yeah. The seminars are going to be with your supervisor and any other Aggies that they are supervising. So you could be, some of you guys that are in Dallas-Fort Worth, there are supervisors up there that have like 3 or 4 districts. And so you may be all meeting at a central location, like one seminar may be in one area and one seminar may be in a different, so you may be traveling to get to those, just like your supervisor is traveling to do your observations. Yes? Yes. I'm going to talk, but yes, there's 4 formal 45-minute. That's a minimum. 4 formal. Yes.
If you have an interview that is in a district that's not the one that you're teaching in, is that absent?
I'll get to that. Yes. So they are required to hold a pre-conference with you. Most of them will either call you and talk through what they're going to be expected to see. Some of them may email. You may email back and forth, but chances are they're going to want a copy of what lesson you're teaching, especially early on, to make sure that they know where you're headed and that you're meeting those things. Yes, you will have communication with them ongoing. They're kind of like a principal. They're going to show up when they need to, but if you need them on an informal basis, if you have questions, they're going to be your first go-to is your supervisor, even if you're not here. All the supervisors are hired by our office, trained. They're getting paid through us. So even if you're in San Antonio, the supervisor there is hired by us. Yes. Yes. Typically 4, but some, so you'll have an orientation, then typically another one the first week, sometime along in there, then a couple of others throughout the semester. Yeah. All right, so attendance and what that looks like. So because TEA requires 70 days, even if you are sick with a university excused absence, you still have to make up that day. Okay, so in the portal right now in Senior Methods, if you're absent, you go in and submit an absence report, correct? And then when you make it up, you submit a makeup. So when you get to clinical teaching, you will do the same thing. You will submit an absence report. We will be notified. Your mentor will be notified. Your supervisor will be notified. And then it will be marked excused or unexcused, depending on why you were out. So you will know if it's an excused absence, it's 1 day makeup. If it's unexcused, it's 2. I'm going to talk a little more about that. But in addition to submitting it online in the portal, you need to have a way to communicate immediately with your mentor teacher and your supervisor, because your mentor teacher obviously needs to know if something's happened and you're not going to be there that day. But your supervisor may be planning to stop by. So make sure that you are letting them know through text or email or phone call, however they prefer notification. The only absences that are excused are university excused absences, just like junior methods, senior methods. Same policy for absences. Okay? So what does that look like? If you miss any part of a day, you have to make up a half day. So if you need to leave 2 hours early to go to the doctor, then you need to add half a day to the end of your semester. If you miss a day for an illness, you make up a day at the end of your semester. Okay, unexcused absences are 2 for 1. So if your best friend is getting married and you are going to miss on a Friday to travel to get there, then that is an unexcused absence. You would add 2 days to the end of the semester. Okay? You cannot have more than 2 unexcused absences. So basically, unexcused absences are like in senior methods, a letter grade reduction. So 1 becomes a B, 2 becomes a C. Anything more than that would be not passing. Okay? Excused absences, you can have more than that. If you get sick and miss a week, which some of you unfortunately may because it's January and kids have all been traveling and come back and there's germs, and so there's a good chance that you may have days of absences for illness, whatever that looks like. If it's more than 3, you need to have a note, but you just one absence is 1 makeup day at the end of the semester. The good thing about the spring semester, because you're starting early in January, there is wiggle room at the end of the semester before graduation. This semester has been a big challenge because some schools didn't start till August 28th. They're off the whole week of Thanksgiving, and they're finishing literally the week of graduation. So you guys have more wiggle room in the spring. But what I will say is I hope none of you guys made big travel plans thinking you're going to be finished on April 15th and you're headed to France the next day. Because if you do miss, or if your school has 3 snow days, those days have to be made up. So I hope that you did not plan. We had 2 girls that had to make major travel plan changes because of absences that were out of their control. So I would not plan anything until after graduation. Any questions on attendance absences? Yes. Does what? Like if she gets sick? Yes. Yes. So you may have 1 excused absence for an interview. So somebody asked that. So if you are clinical teaching in Bryan and you decide you're going to go interview in Sci-Fair for a job next year, you can have 1 day excused absence to leave your school, obviously submit everything, let everybody know in advance. That day still has to be made up, but 1 excused absence for interview.
If we're going on a study abroad with the department,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we're missing like 3 days, it works the same exact way.
Yes, you'll enter those. There'll be excused absence. That's a university excused absence for another class. Yes. So you'll enter those absences ahead of time and just make those days up at the end. Yes.
You mentioned that if we miss 3 days, if we're sick, then we need a doctor's note?
Yes.
Okay, so if it's just 1 day, like we're running a fever, we don't necessarily need a doctor's note.
Correct.
Until 3 days.
Correct. Isn't that how methods is? No. You have to have an absence.
A doctor's note for every time.
Oh, I don't think that's what. Yeah, I think that there's a form.
I have a question. Do we follow what the children follow? Like, if we have a fever, do we still have to wait 24 hours after the fever breaks?
I would. I would. The nurse would tell you that. Sure, you don't want to come back and be contagious. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Any other questions about absences? Hers? So my understanding with the A&M policy is if you're absent a day or 2 days, you don't need a note. But if it's 3 days or more, that's not the case? For it to be excused, I think you have to have a note. So 1 day's okay, 2 days, anything more than 2 days, you need a doctor's note. That's what we're going to go with for clinical teaching. That's what we do now. It doesn't do you any good to play hooky and say you're sick when you're not sick. Because, what? You still have to make up the day. So it's not like you're missing out on something and not having to make it up. So there's no advantage to taking days. You have a question? Okay. All right. Any other questions on absences? All right. So as far as the semester goes and what you're going to be expected to do and submit to your supervisor and eventually submit some things to us, you will create a projected schedule for the entire semester. So all 14 weeks, you will kind of map out what that's going to look like, how to lead up to full responsibility, the weeks you're in full responsibility, when you're back to just teaching part-time, building back up to full, and then phasing out as the semester comes to a close. You'll also submit a weekly teaching schedule. You'll sit down with your mentor, map out when you're going to teach during the week, and then that will be shared with your supervisor. They need to know when you're teaching. They want to come when you're teaching. They don't want to come watch your mentor teacher. So that weekly schedule, some of them will have, you send it to them so that they can plan their week. So they may have due dates for you of when those need to be in. Because some of our supervisors, like I said, have multiple districts, and so they're traveling, so they'll have to map out their week and make sure that they're coming to see you teach when you're actually teaching in the classroom and not on a field trip. You'll have a notebook that you will keep that the supervisor, when they come in, can flip through and look at your lesson plans. Your handbook will be in there, calendars. That's also where you'll keep your journal, where you'll just do some self-reflection throughout the semester. We will have a discussion, 3 separate discussions within eCampus throughout the semester. These are all just based on what's going on. You're not going to have to go do research and come up with anything. It's going to be questions about what your experience is like, what's going on, and then you're going to be reading your peers and commenting on your peers. Ideas that are going on, good things you're seeing, things you wish you had known, things you would tell somebody that's about to go into clinical teaching. It's a good piece for us to kind of check in because you guys are going to be all over the state, and it's a good way for us to know how things are going. But it's also good for you to hear from your peers and know that maybe something that you're struggling with, other people are having the same issues. So those discussions, once the semester starts, you'll get an email that'll give you the due dates for those. At the end of the semester, so you will keep a daily attendance log. This is another TEA thing. In your notebook, you will write the time you get there and the time you leave every day, and your mentor teacher will initial. 70 days. It's all on one piece of paper. You'll just time in, time out, initial. If you're absent, you'll write absent on that date, and then obviously make the days up at the end. And then at the end of the semester, you will upload that into eCampus. So I have that if we were to get audited. Yes? Yeah. You'll get a template. It's a page in your handbook, and we'll send an attachment where you'll just print it off and just keep it in your notebook and just, yes. Can you keep one? No, because if I walk into your classroom, I want to be able to flip open your notebook and look at your lesson plans. That's not realistic for your supervisor who's walking in right then to look at something. So you need a hard copy on your desk, wherever your space is, if you have a desk or a corner or a cubby, but you need to have a notebook that somebody coming in, you might have a principal that wants to come in and they're considering hiring you. Are you still listening? Okay. So you need to have a hard copy of a notebook. So anybody from the district or from A&M or your supervisor, if they come in, they can flip through your notebook, read your reflections, look at your lesson plans, look at your attendance log. Your supervisor will check your attendance log every time they come in to check on you to make sure that it's being done. So, yes. Yeah, they can initial and then just put sub. Yeah, good question. Any other questions on attendance log? Yes. You cannot be the sub. No. So you cannot sub during your 70 days and have that count as one of your days. So you will not be signing your own log as being the teacher that day. Yes. Yes. Yeah. You can't be left alone without another teacher. So if your teacher takes the day and you're in full responsibility, there should be a sub in the room with you. Yes. Good question. Yeah. No. Mm-mm. Yes.
So we're not allowed to be in the room with the children without another teacher.
No, you can be alone. You can't be there for the whole day and be expected to be the teacher. But no, your teacher may go down the hall to the library to work on lesson plans while you're in full responsibility. But they need to be available and nearby. Yes. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Yes. You mean as a clinical teacher, can you be left alone with a class of 30 while you're a teacher? I mean, I could see how if you're in an elementary school and your kids all go to recess and you have 3 kids that were absent and you're helping them with makeup work, you may be in the room with kids helping them in small chunks of time, but it shouldn't be for any extended period of time. All right, any other questions? The other thing I talked about, your reflection. So you guys do a reflection now, right? After your senior methods instructor does a pop-in walkthrough, it asks you, okay, same basic format, except the questions are going to be more detailed. You're going to have to reflect on the actual observation that was done, some comments that were made in there, and then plans moving forward. So it's reflecting on what happened and then looking forward of how you're going to make changes or what you would have done differently. And so it's a good reflection piece, but without that reflection, that it's not a complete observation. So make sure when you get an email that says your observation's been submitted by your supervisor, within 48 hours, you go in and submit your reflection. Okay? At the end of the semester, you'll do an evaluation of your mentor teacher and your supervisor. That is a guide for us moving forward. If you've had a great experience, we want to know if there's things you wish they would have done differently. That's an opportunity for you to let us know that as well as we plan for future semesters. The handbook talks, yes. So if you have an issue with your supervisor, you would let us know. If you have an issue, your mentor teacher's not providing something you need, you would go to your supervisor. But yes, obviously if things aren't going well, we need to know. Try to make them right. The handbook has a page for what the mentor teacher's responsibilities are and what your supervisor's responsibilities are. I talked about they're going to give you regular ongoing feedback and participate in the conference. The supervisor is going to hold their orientation, do your formal observations, facilitate those 3-way conferences, and they are your first go-to if you have questions throughout the semester. Okay? As far as subbing, there is no subbing. When TEA changed it to 70 days, there's just not enough wiggle room for you to sub, make up those days, and still have any issues with being cleared for graduation. So no subbing during your 70 days. As soon as you finish your 70 days, absolutely. If they've got a sub position, long-term sub position, you can take those before you graduate and transition into any kind of long-term sub position prior to graduation. Within the handbook, there are forms at the back that you can use as your templates, your guides for planning this semester. The Code of Ethics. Should there be any issues or problems during clinical teaching, you may be put on a growth plan, just like in methods. The growth plan can be a probation plan, and if things do not improve, you can be terminated or pulled from clinical teaching. If that happens, you will need to meet with me, meet with Justin Smith, and then talk about what options there are moving forward with returning and starting over the following semester in clinical teaching. And that would be back here locally. So, career fair for you guys as far as looking for jobs and being there ready to hand out your resume and interview potentially will be Monday, April 8th. So you will be required to come to career fair that day looking for a job. It's 9 to 11:30, and then at 11:30, Misty Korn will be there and I will be there, and we'll talk about certification and graduation requirements. Yes. No. It's just not counted. Like when you count your 70 days, yeah. Question? Yes. For what? It typically is a whole day because by the time you leave there and get back to your campus, it would be more than half a day. Yeah. Any other questions about career fair? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Any other questions on career fair? There will be districts at the spring career fair interviewing day of and offering contracts day of. That's been the case every spring semester. There will be principals there interviewing, and some of them will be actually signing contracts day of career fair. So spring is a great opportunity. There will probably be over 200 recruiting entities there, and so it is a great one-stop shop to get your name and face and resume in front of recruiters. Yes? Misty Korn will talk about PPR when she does her audio slide presentation that you guys will get in a couple weeks. All right, you guys all have insurance this semester. You have to, correct? So if you have that, you're fortunate. That should roll over to next semester. Just make sure that it does, because that'll be something that in the handbook you sign that you have insurance. So make sure that it was for the entire school year and that it covers clinical teaching. As long as you're not getting paid, my understanding is it covers methods and clinical teaching. But just make sure that you've got a document that says that you are covered in the event that it's needed. Questions about insurance? So until you've done, obviously you guys are all here. You were at the first meeting, so check for number 1. You have to have been advised. So if you have not been into TLAC for advising, you should have gotten an email, but you will not get your placement if you have not been in for advising. If the districts have requested information for clearance, an application, any kind of paperwork from you, make sure you get that submitted now, because they won't send us placements until they have that information from you. And so yours would come to your email and it would all say pending. So make sure you get that taken care of. And you guys should have all passed your exam, primary exam. Okay. Our office is in Heaton Hall, 102. And our email, you should be getting regular emails from us. Once the semester starts, you will get a weekly email update from our office. So make sure you're checking that. It'll remind you about due dates. It'll remind you about eCampus. It'll remind you about career fair, just certification information, graduation information. So each week you will get an email from our office. I'm going to close with the fact that you guys are leaving A&M as Aggies and you are going out into the world to represent A&M as Aggie teachers. We partner with like 85 districts around the state. They are willing to host Aggies. The reputation of Aggies is top notch. We have people that come to career fair and say, Aggie teachers are the best. I would hire only Aggie teachers if I could. So the reputation has been established and set. So my hope is that you go out and raise that bar and have wonderful experience. And please remember, you are a guest representing A&M as well as yourself. And so put your best foot forward and look forward to hearing success stories when we see you again.